Hey, today Dr. Zhang is going to show you his method for installing hardwood laminate flooring using 3-tapping.
So why 3-tapping? Why not 2-tapping? People usually say hardwood floor is harder, but actually in terms of locking, laminate floor is more complicated. Let me show you why. This is the hardwood floor. There's a tongue and groove. When you place them on the floor, you can just horizontally lock in. And then you use a nail to nail on the tongue side, and the groove side will be locked vertically by the tongue and the groove. Imagine if you don't have the nail, they will fall apart. This is a laminate flooring. You see, when you move them horizontally, they will never latch. You have to have an angle and move in, and afterwards, see, this will be latched, and this will flow on the floor without nail.
Cool, that looks like it would be a lot less work without having to nail everything.
Yeah, the nailing part is great, but you have to really understand how it works. So let me start with looking at the locking mechanism. And this is called the long side, and on this side, it's called the short side. Now, let's look at the long side first. Long side, I labeled the tongue and groove the red color. So as I described before, you really have to angle to get the main tongue and groove in. But what is the difference? Not just you have to have an angle in, but there are two more tongue and groove involved. I've colored them here. The green color and the black color are what I call secondary tongue and groove. So when you lock them in, you see the green has a bump, will go to the small valley here, and this black tongue will go to the small groove here. It's interesting, this tongue, it's in part of the groove. In the main, there's a groove here, and there's a tongue here. This is the main tongue, and this is the main groove. They are in red. Let me flip this. Tongue will go to the groove here as a main. Green color, there's a pair of tongue and groove, and this bump will go to the small valley. And there's another pair, tongue and groove in black. This black tongue will go to the groove here. If I flip
Put it together.
So this is how it latched. So that's why, because of this feature, you cannot insert them horizontally. So you have to have an angle. See, there's an angle here. You have to insert in order to lock them. Now, look at this long groove and look at the short groove. We are going to compare the two grooves. This is on the short side, this is on the long side. The difference is that the long groove a little bit smaller than the shorter groove. And you see the right circle right here? You see the groove for the short one? It's a little bit bigger than the right circle here. That's the groove. That's the main groove. So what does it really mean? That means if I install this horizontally, even though it's not easy to get in, but if I have enough force to jam in, I can push the tongue into the groove horizontally. Because the groove, you see the right circle is a little bit bigger. So you can lock in horizontally. Our ultimate goal is lock in both the long side, main tongue and groove, and secondary tongue and groove. And also, you need to lock in the short side. And how do you know you are installing correctly? Two final steps. One is this has to be flat, and also has to be no gap. The first tapping, you make the tongue into the groove with the angle. If it's a short one, you can just use hand. Very easy, there's no gap with just hand. But if you have a longer planks, a lot of time just one side has no gap, the other side has a gap. In this situation, you need to do the first tapping. First tapping is to put the main tongue and groove in. So first tapping can either use hand, or I made a mallet with a tennis ball. You need to tap this. Once this no gap, you can move to the next tapping. Next tapping, you need to press it down, but very often this will bounce back. And look at the real situation. You push it down, but look at this side. You push it down, it will come up. So this means the secondary tongue groove is not latched. The mistake you can make is at beginning I press this down and move to the next step, and that was very hard. So you should do the second step to make sure when you push on the left side, it doesn't come back. And that way you know the secondary tongue and groove is latched. Like you press this down and then along the edge so it will settle. See, gradually the secondary tongue and groove will settle. And you wiggle a little bit, make sure the secondary tongue and groove lock in place. The goal is you lock in the secondary tongue and groove. Usually the tapping, you try to do horizontal tapping, but it's very lightly. And try not to use a real hammer to here because it will damage it. You either have a larger area, hit like this, or the better yet, use just a scrap wood. You tap along the edge, and gradually it will settle. You press it down, and it will settle.
So that's your tapping block.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to buy something called a tapping block.
Right, and watch my other video how to make your various different kind of a tapping block. At the end of the second tapping, you need to have two conditions. One is there's no gap. The second is this is a flat. The both plank need to be flat. So stop here if it's not. The third tapping, you have to tap very hard from the right to the left so that this gap will disappear. Third tap is on the short side. It will be easy if you did the second step. See how much damage I have before I didn't do the second step, and this was coming up and it's very hard for me to tap. So summary, the first step, tap long side. The main thing is lock in the main tongue and groove, restrict vertical movement. And second is the horizontally, you have to lock in the secondary tongue and groove. The third one, you tap short side horizontally, so the short side is locked. Occasionally, you have to modify this three tapping method. For example, if you don't have the first step, for example, some of the door trim I have, see the door trim here, if you are under the trim, the first tapping will not work because you cannot tap with an angle. Especially the long side, you cannot horizontally jam in. The way you do it is use a knife, you cut this secondary tongue. You see the second ground is on the groove side of the plank. And when I cut the black part, the green part, which is another secondary groove, will disappear as well. Easily, I cut this. So once you cut this, easily your horizontal, you can remove it. In this case, you have to apply a glue and then horizontally tapping in. Another situation, you don't have a room. If you don't have a room, in this situation, I have the third tap first. Get the short side first, but remember the long side, you can't get in without the angle. So you should just use a screwdriver or something, raise this and try to get in, see? The next condition is what I call reverse installation. For example, I start this as a first row. The second row, I have this tongue go into the groove here. And the rest of it is just a normal installation. In the next row will tongue into the groove to this side. But if you first row, you didn't start from one side of the house. For example, if you start at the center of the house, the rest on this side, you have to do groove into the tongue. That's what I call the reverse installation. So let's look at the example. This is the first row I started. The tongue will go to in the groove on left or right correctly. So this room and all the rest of it are correctly. But from the first row, if I want to go through the whole way without transition or T-molding, and there are other rooms, then the rest I have to do reverse, meaning the groove has to go into the tongue. This is a demonstration of a groove. Go into the tongue. See, it has to go with a certain angle, and then it has to go in and down further. The bottom of the groove will hit subfloor. See? It will hit the subfloor. So it's a little bit harder, but laminate floor has this thick padding and it's not a solid subfloor, so it's okay. I can do that reverse. Not as easy because the bottom groove has to touch the floor. I found the first step, the angle is most important when you do this reverse installation. So you really have to dig down to the floor in order to get it locked. A normal operation, this one, you can just use a hand, tap it very lightly. You have to focus on the first step when you do the reverse installation. But the second step and the third step is the same as the normal installation. You know, at the beginning, I thought the reverse installation is so difficult. Actually, it's not that difficult because it's only on the first step. My laminate planks are very common. You can use a reference, but yours may or may not be exactly the same. If yours is different than mine, you need to study the common groove first. Otherwise, you will spend more time trying to figure out how it works. This is 12 millimeter in thickness. If you got a box, they tell you who made them and what kind of system. Glueless laminate flooring. Each box will come with an instruction. However, I found instructions for the simplest installation. There are a lot of actually real issues you have to resolve.